Thanks very much. The final part of our conference has three elements to it. The first is to hear in a moment from Dick Palmer about opportunities for new kinds of partnerships. The second is a more interactive session, a debate about is small beautiful, looking at small boards and governance. And then the third is widening out into the risk-taking culture and entrepreneurial governance, which Fintan Donoghue will lead. We're on a mission to keep as close to time as we can, because I recognise that many people have booked train tickets to disappear to wherever they need to disappear. So without further ado, colleagues, please would you welcome to the stage Dick Palmer, who is going to speak to us about transforming education in Norfolk. Dick.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Bill. Right, I've got a very short presentation, well, a very long presentation. I'm going to make very short now about what's happening in Norfolk. At the core of what we're doing is City College Norwich. I won't spend any time on that too much, but apart from saying that the board of City College Norwich around 2007 made a big decision, which in hindsight was very prescient, to create a partnerships and federations subcommittee of the corporation. And it did so because the college had increasingly developed its link with partner schools, around about 32 across the county, and had grown its 14 to 16 provision from around about 50 students in 2003 to just over 1,100 in 2010. And because of that growth and because of the nature of the involvement with younger students and with the schools, the college made a really overt and very ambitious statement that it wanted to work more closely with schools and would take up opportunities around defining and helping to deliver better educational outcomes for people in Norfolk. And so from 2007 onwards, the college has been on a journey of partnering with schools, looking at how it can help deliver better educational standards. And of course, Norfolk's one of those counties where educational standards just aren't good enough. So I'm going to talk to you about what we've created. We've created something new called the 10 Group. 10 stands for Transforming Education in Norfolk. It's a federation of educational institutions. At the moment, it's got these comprising organizations. It's got one academy called City Academy Norwich, 11 to 18, 800 students. Wayland Academy, 11 to 16, 680. Fakenham Academy is just about to join us. That's a new academy for us, 11 to 18, 1,000 students. The college itself has got 14,000. We've got a new UTC starting off in September 2014, probably the one that's causing us the most problems with governance, actually. But the UTC with 600 students, we've created a shared services vehicle called Norfolk Educational Services. It does all of the back office stuff for the group, anything outside of teaching and learning, and we've 2P'd across 450 staff from both the college and the academies into the new shared services company. And we have a shell commercial company called 10 Commercial Services, and that does all of the self-financing, discrete commercial activities, again, for the whole group. So if you want to hire a rugby pitch from an academy, or if you want a leadership course from the college, you buy both of those things from our commercial services company. And I'm not sure if you can see it properly. This is our structure. Three key things to note in this particular organogram. One, the college now has a parent, and we have created an educational charity which sits at the top of the organization as a parent, and was a big leap of faith for the College Corporation to take on that new organization. We have a shared services vehicle, bottom left, as I've mentioned. That does all of the non-teaching and learning. And that was a considered approach, not simply because of the financial gains from collective procurement, the ability to have more effective staffing arrangements, etc. But the key thing for us was also that it freed up the educational leaders of their institutions. So when you look at those, the college and the academies in the middle line, they no longer have responsibility for business support staff or for non-paid budgets for non-teaching and learning activities. And that was a part of our learning model, that we would free up educational leaders to focus on educational outcomes. And then the third bit to notice is that you probably can't read this at all, but in the middle there's something called Norfolk Academies. And it has two academies underneath it, Wayland Academy Norfolk and Fakenham Academy Norfolk. And that's something called a multi-academy trust. It's again parented by 10, but it also has, which are not on this table, but it also has individual local governing bodies that are responsible for the educational delivery of their schools. So it's quite a sophisticated governance model. Brief history: the college started off in 1898. Wayland became an academy with us as a college in 2012, so that was prior to our establishment of our federation. City Academy Norwich was our very first sponsored academy. We took that on in 2009. I've mentioned the UTC, and of course Educational Services, Norfolk Educational Services came into effect September. Transforming Education came into in effect in September, and Fakenham is just joining us now. So, you know, although the individual institutions have a great deal of maturity and long-standing in their community, as a new federation, because the academies are brand new, the actual federation itself is very, very young, and in effect only has been in existence since September of last year. The governance model, as I mentioned earlier, took a great leap of faith for our governing body to actually, in effect, lose some of its sovereignty. We changed the instruments and articles of the College Corporation under the new freedoms and flexibilities under the 2011 Act last summer. We went out to public consultation, open events, etc., all of the normal stuff. And we changed it in three ways. One, to allow 10 to appoint the majority of governors on the governing body, so creating that parent relationship. We also split up the job of principal and CEO, formally within the articles. And because we were giving 10 the authority to appoint directors into the college, we also changed the search function. And we consulted on all of those things last year, and those changes came into effect as of August the 1st. And it was only through changing those instruments and articles could we establish the educational charity 10. And then the governing body of the college appointed the trustees to 10. So it's a bit tortuous, actually, because they appointed the trustees to 10, and they became 10 appointees, because they were appointed by 10. It's a little bit convoluted. We then had to change the Articles of Association of all of the schools, the academies, a much more difficult task because you have to gain Secretary of State approval, and indeed we would have to have done that if it weren't for the Education Act with the college, because hitherto you had to go to the Secretary of State for changes, of course. But we could do it for ourselves to the college, but we had to go to the Secretary of State for the academies, and indeed the UTC change was particularly onerous. And whereas we changed the college's articles substantially in around about 3 months, it took us 9 months to change the articles with the UTC. We've set up the 10 group, as I say. That has what's called now a controlling interest. And the controlling interest is directed by virtue of the fact that the parent company appoints the majority of directors in all of the educational institutions, and the shared services company and the commercial company. What does that mean in effect? We've got much smaller boards, and I know you're going to have a panel debate about that now. The 10 board, the parent, has just 7 trustees, including myself. Highly influential. We took one, the chairman of the governing body from the corporation through to 10 as a trustee, but all the rest are new, highly influential, big players in our local patch. We reduced the college from 20 governors down to 12. Sounds simple, actually a real challenge, because in our model as well, we had 3 staff, including the principal, and of course now we've got a principal and a CEO. And we had to reduce that down to 1 staff then, apart from those 2 people, of course one of which is myself. But also we had 3 students. So moving from 20 down to 12 was a considerable challenge. Our first academy that we sponsored has got 16, ironically. That's complicated by the fact that it has some other sponsorship. The local university and the county council are involved, and it's meant we've had to keep them slightly larger. The University Technical College is a really small, tight board. Our multi-academy trust has also a small board just with 6 people. It's probably the area we need to grow. As we take more and more schools into this structure, they will all come under the Multi-Academy Trust. And I think probably we'll end up with 8 or 9 people there. We have local governing bodies, as I mentioned, but they're small. So the first one we had was Wayland, and that's got 8. And our shared services vehicle has 7 directors. They may be smaller, but as I've mentioned, they are very much more highly influential. So, for example, we have the Lord Lieutenant as a trustee for the county, the Vice Chancellor of the local university, University of East Anglia, is on our trustee board. We've gone and been very successful, fortunately, in getting partner-level representation in our academies and at the college, right across the piece. And we have managing partners of 4 different firms of accountants in the county that are on either the college or one of our academy boards, and indeed senior partners from 3 legal firms. We've gone for CEO, MD, founder level and local businesses. And this has taken us a long time. We've been going through this process for 2 years, and finding the right governors has been a really, really strategic part of that. And we've done it slowly and deliberately and gone for the sorts of people we really knew could make a difference. And when we've gone for the normal, perhaps that's not the right word to use in this context, or a governance conference, but where the more traditional governors have come from banks and those sorts of things, we've gone for regional representation or indeed at least county-wide. So, what does 10 do? I mentioned it already, is responsible for search. We've amended the INA. We've developed financial regulations so that contracts, for example, capital spends now have limits. So, if the college, for example, wants to spend £10 million on a new build, it has to be endorsed by 10. That decision the college can make, but it has to be endorsed by 10. And of course, there are legal implications if that doesn't work. We set the strategy for the group. And I mentioned earlier, there is a 3-tiered structure. You have 10 at the top, you have a multi-academy, and then a local governing body underneath that. And we've had to spend a lot of time getting those delegated responsibilities coming down that chain, if you like, to make sure that all works. And at the end of the day, this is not about creating a wonderful, very sophisticated structure. It's about making sure that we create better educational outcomes for our students. So we had to make sure that those delegated responsibilities worked for those institutions and that the outcomes would be right for our students. For the future, 10 is taking clearly a very strategic and lead role on membership. We've used a commercial due diligence model and adapted it for our own purposes to look at educational institutions, so that when we discuss with partners who are aspiring to join us, that we have the appropriate information to hand and we can make informed decisions about their membership. And 10 is taking on the overarching investment strategy for the group. The college was around about £42 million as an organisation, and as a group that's moved up to 58. Having a strategic investment strategy, deciding on where and how best to invest very scarce funds is a key task of the parent going forward. Last slide. We haven't finished yet. As I said, we're a new, young organisation, still in our startup phase, and there's a lot more to do. It took 18 months. We were really fortunate to get a chunk of the AOC Innovation Fund money last year around shared services to support this development. We just couldn't have done it without that support. And there's still lots more to do. We've done the legal framework, we've done the delegated authority, we've done the financial stuff. We've got to make the pudding, prove the outcomes now. But our performance has gone up in the college, it's gone up in the 2 original academies that we started since the time of the Federation, so we're very confident about that. We spend a lot of money on legal support, and if anybody is interested in this model going forward, please don't go out there and spend any more money on getting it. At least talk to the AOC first and find out whether the stuff that we've created could be useful to you, because we spent a lot of public funds on this, and it's available for the sector, so please do use it. And I think there's been a lot of noise, as we would say, in the sector, perhaps not so much around colleges, but let's not count our chickens. Certainly around schools, there's been noise about governance being around local worthies, not really caring about what they do. These people clearly haven't been a governor themselves. Well, certainly they haven't been a governor in organisations that I've worked with. And there's been noise around, particularly again around schools, governors not intervening to make change when performance is poor. And one other one, which is relevant to us, around academy chains growing too quickly. And so we are absolutely knocking that one on the head. We have a governance manual, we have skills audits amongst all of our governing bodies, we appoint new trustees and directors based on their skills, etc. And we want to make sure that our governance model is as robust as it can be, but in order that it helps us deliver the right sort of outcomes for our students. So we haven't got all the answers. I'm sure it's not a model for everybody, but we've chosen this path. We believe it's going to make a real difference to young people and indeed older in Norfolk, and we've started off on a real journey. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Dick has kindly said he'd be happy to take a few questions if there are any questions in the room. Colleague at the front here, if we could just bring the microphone down there.
John Short from York College. If you grow in the way that you've sort of indicated, you're very quickly, or even not so quickly, going to be a mini or perhaps not so mini local authority. And I see already sort of 3 tiers of board structures, which always worries the heck out of me when I see things like that. How do you avoid all the disadvantages that come with running a largish organisation? How do you remain focused, quick on your feet, and not bureaucratic, and keep your costs?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, John. We don't have an aspiration to be huge. We spent some time on that in the last 6 months. I think our aspiration is probably around 8 to 10 institutions being part of it. So that will offset some of your concerns. And we have no aspirations to go outside of the county. That's why we made sure the name was Transforming Education in Norfolk. We genuinely want to be a family of federated institutions. And I think our big difference between ourselves and the local authority is that we are just about education. When you ring up, we talk to these academies, and if you ring up, the HR and I've got nothing against the HR in Norfolk County Council, far from it. But, you know, they are responsible for planning and adult social services. My guys, all they know are you know, LGPS and TPS, for example. So it's a very focused support mechanism. But we are looking very closely at that 3 tiers of governance. You know, we responded to government by going for a MAT, a multi-academy trust, but it has given us an issue because of the local governing body boards and underneath that. You know, if we could streamline that, we could. Unfortunately, at the moment, if you get a MAT, you have to have a local governing body, so we have no choice.
And clearly, you've got local people involved.
Yep.
But how do you need to do more to ensure that you are getting sufficient local accountability in the way that is implicit in some of the things that Ofsted have been talking about here?
Yeah. No, again, good question again. All of our board members, right down from the trust, are local. As I said, we've gone for people with influence because you know, they bring influence to bear for the students in those organisations. But you're right. I think one of the really interesting things around local accountability has been academy conversion. I'll never forget the day we also partnered with our local independent school, Norwich School, very good local independent school. And when we converted City Academy Norwich, there was myself, the Vice Chancellor of the University of East Anglia, the head teacher of Norwich School, and the Director for Children's Services at the Norfolk County Council in a room for the first open consultation event for parents and local stakeholders, and no one turned up. And the second evening we put on another one because nobody turned up, and 3 people turned up. And you know, what we've found is that local accountability you have to work at and earn and fight for. And we've set up a whole range of parent fora and other things, local stakeholder groups, in order to help us to support us to do that. But I totally agree with you. It needs to be locally accountable. And you know, by keeping it on the patch, I think one of the problems about academy change is, you know, you could be a school in Shropshire and your head office is in Islington, you know, and not too sure how that works.
Thank you. I think there's one more question here and one more question there. Maybe we could hear both of them and then invite you to respond to both of them. So one on this table and one over there.
Helen Birchnough from Wiltshire College. I just wonder if 10 set the strategy, how you ensure that the good people on the boards of all the attendant colleges have real purpose and value.
Thank you. And if we could just pass the microphone to the last question. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very much the same as my question. What say do the local governing bodies have in setting the mission, vision and values, or how do you ensure that they're singing from the same hymn sheet as the 10 board?
Yeah, I suppose the key thing, which I haven't said, and I apologise, is that the 10 doesn't own any of the assets, it doesn't get any of the income, it doesn't dictate the curriculum offer. The local boards do that. Okay, it has a controlling interest because it appoints the directors of those companies. But it doesn't. It's still those boards that make those decisions. They still get the money. They still own the buildings and the land and all of those sorts of things. So 10 is really it is a really high-level strategic organisation. So we set curriculum frameworks. So we say things like all of our academies will have a vocational offer. It will be of a certain standard, etc. But we don't say whether Academy A is going to do A-level French, or whether it has to have an AST for Spanish. And we don't do that with the college either. So, they still run their institutions, but 10 gives them frameworks and sets strategies and saves them an awful lot of money. Our feasibility study showed that we will save £1.7 million on just the 2 academies and the college. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you, colleagues. Would you put your hands together and thank Dick Palmer very much indeed? That's fantastic. Thank you.